I mentioned this a few episodes ago that that's my New Year's resolution is to make all my friends
yeah.
cakes. So what would be for both of you?
Did you make my cake today?
I didn't.
Oh, that's nice. Go on,
Sorry.
continue.
This was my last episode here. I need to know.
Coming up on Need to Know, Lunar New Year traditions, my personal favourite birthday cake flavour, and the great fruitcake toss. That and everything else you need to know. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Need to Know. I'm your host, Gemma Stafford, professional chef, creative Bigger Bolder baking and cookbook author. And as always, I'm joined by my two lovely co-hosts, Ami Shukla, who is a culinary director here at Bigger Bolder Baking, and Tiana Cohen, who is an amateur baker and a professional host.
Hello, hello.
Hello, ladies.
How are we doing today?
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about all of our fun things from Hot from the Oven. You know, I said it earlier, I feel like we've been in January forever, and there's so many fun celebrations in January. And coming up in just a few days is actually Lunar New Year. And so I thought we could talk about that for just a few minutes. For those that don't know, Lunar New Year marks the start of the new year according to the lunar calendar and is celebrated across East and Southeast Asia, including China, Korea, Vietnam, and other regions. It is a time for family reunions, honoring ancestors, and wishing for prosperity, good fortune in the new year. And 2025 is the year of the snake. So very exciting. Lots of celebrities celebrate Lunar New Year, from Jackie Chan, Daniel Day Kim, Chrissy Teigen and John Legend, Vera Wang, and many others. So I just thought it'd be a fun thing to make note of and know that there's so many wonderful holidays here in January. One of the traditional foods that I thought was fun is dumplings, which represent wealth. And
Always love dumplings.
Yeah.
Dumplings are the best.
I know, dumplings are the best. And what I love about Lunar New Year is that it's just soaked in traditions. And I think something that's so beautiful is that all over the world, all over the United States, there's so many traditions, which leads us to our next topic, which is the tradition of the great fruitcake toss. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Okay.
I've only just recently heard about this, and I just think it's fantastic.
So for those of you that don't know, the Great Fruitcake Toss is held annually in Manitou Springs, Colorado, and is a quirky winter event that began all the way back in 1996, where locals started tossing unwanted fruitcakes. The event includes various competitions such as distance, accuracy, and the basket cake challenge, where participants aim to land fruitcakes in baskets.
Aww.
Yes, there's also a fruitcake bake-off. And yeah, it's just a big celebration. I did look this up because I was curious.
Wait, there's a fruitcake bake-off.
Bake-off.
But then why are they tossing cake?
Well,
Do they
Maybe
like
some people want to actually eat the
eat
cake.
them. Well, and then I was thinking that too, is like there's a whole bunch of waste. So they actually donate the tossed ones, like the ones that get dirty, I guess, to animals. For the animals.
The animals get dirty cake.
The animals get dirty cake.
And maybe boozy.
Yeah,
boozy
too.
But how do you feel about this? Aren't fruitcakes really big in Ireland?
You know, yeah, they are. But you guys, I don't think Americans like fruitcake.
Well, okay, you know what? Growing up, you know, if a fruitcake ever came across my way, it always had maraschino cherries in there.
Same in Ireland.
It was like, you know, weirdly sweet and alcohol-y and dense and heavy.
Yeah.
They weren't good. They just did not taste good at all. But I have to say, since I've been working with you, we've made several different kinds of fruitcakes through the years, and they're really good. So they're totally, you know, not the kind of fruitcakes I grew up with, or you know.
I will tell you, and I learned this from my mom. So yes, fruitcakes are heavy and boozy and very sweet. But that's kind of what I like about them. But they can be too sweet. And then also what I learned from my mom is that you need to use good quality fruit. You really, really need to use good quality fruit. You need to use good candied cherries, which I have a recipe on biggerbolderbaking.com, because glacé cherries are not good quality. But they, and I get them. You know what I actually do? If I don't have time to make them because cherry season is not the same as winter season here, I buy them in Tesco in Ireland and I'll carry them back with me. Also, candied peel, really good quality in Tesco. And I also have a recipe on the website of how you can make it. Good quality fruit, but it's really expensive. Your fruit cakes end up being really expensive, but it is worth it. But I just don't know. It's funny because I just don't think as a country,
well,
you guys are big on
you know what?
fruitcake.
I think of dried fruit as like a healthy snack. I know it's not really good for your teeth, but I still think of it as a healthy snack. So I don't always want a healthy snack in my cake.
I will tell you, but I think you should tell everybody that you hate raisins.
Okay, fine. Yes. I really loathe raisins in baked goods.
Yeah.
Like I can't stand them. But then again, I will say that there have been things that Gemma's made that I don't want to like. Like, I'm like, there's raisins in this. I don't like it. I don't want to like it. And then I try it and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess it's really good.
Remember the other day when I fed you the bread pudding?
Oh, yes.
And that had raisins in it.
Yes, that was
good.
good.
Did you eat it?
Yes.
Did you like it?
Yes. But I don't like raisins.
No, but I will say that we just recently, last year, did a boiled fruit cake on my website. And during the holiday season, around, like from October onwards, my auntie Rosaline shared her recipe for her Irish Christmas fruit cake. That is, during the holiday season, from October, is one of the most popular recipes on my website. And then we did the boiled fruit cake. I'd say that was in November. That was hugely popular. And I know that, knowing the breakdown of our audience, that is a lot of American people. So I just feel like everyone I talk to says that they don't like fruitcake because they didn't grow up with it.
Right.
But then there's a large American audience on my website making fruitcake. So what's up? I don't know.
Well, maybe they're making it for this contest.
For the toss,
They
right.
want to toss it.
Well, you know what's also kind of fun is the anticipation. Like if you're making this cake in October and then you're feeding it, once a week?
Yeah.
Knowing that Christmas is coming soon, like that's like kind of a cool thing, right? Like that's like maybe there's a lovely ritual to that that happens. But then, so you've made the cake and then you don't want to eat it and now we get to throw it.
Yeah.
My mom, well, in Ireland also you'd make really big ones and then my mom would have to divide them up between her sisters because they were just so big. And as children, there was 5 children. We did not eat fruitcake. And in Ireland, especially during the 80s, my mom would do a layer of marzipan and a layer of royal icing and that would just all came off. You're like, no way. So when you did start to eat it, but then we put butter on it. And butter on fruitcake is delicious.
So Gemma, if you got to Manitou Springs, would you throw a fruitcake?
No.
You should eat it. Slap some butter on there.
No, I'd be over in the tent wanting to win, being super competitive, wanting to win the best baked fruitcake.
I think I would win the one where you have to toss it into a basket. I feel like I have good aim. I couldn't throw it a far distance though.
I think I'd just be there to taste all the cakes. I think that would be kind of fun.
Well, something that I've been seeing a lot on TikTok that is not getting tossed aside is the viral vintage heart-shaped cakes. Have you guys seen these?
I saw them, and I feel like you do those, right?
I have experimented with some vintage cakes. I think they're really fun. They're it's just like piping. Good piping techniques, and they're fun. They're pretty. It's really like beautiful to see one of these cakes.
They're always nicely colored.
Yeah, and they feel very festive. You put a little like brightly colored frosting and these wonderful piping decorations all around it. And
yeah, I mean, I've been seeing them for things from birthday cakes to bachelorette weekends to baby announcement cakes. Like this heart-shaped cake, I really feel popped off on social media within the last year and a half, 2 years. And it's all I see. And they do monochromatic and then all the trim and the frills. And then the one I love, which makes it look super vintage, is the cherries. Along the edge, which I thought was so cute. But speaking of cake, Gemma, your birthday is actually just in a few days. Yeah. So I thought for today's In the Mix, we could just take a deep dive into cake and all things birthday cake.
That sounds good.
Great.
I'm all about birthday cake.
Well, for starters, what is your favorite kind of birthday cake?
My favorite kind of birthday cake came about, actually, my favorite one now is Swedish princess cake.
Ooh.
Because I used to live in Santa Monica, as a lot of people know, and 2 blocks down from our house was Sweet Lady Jane's, which is a famous bakery in LA, and became famous because it was Oprah's favorite bakery. And maybe she also actually loved the princess cake. I can't remember that now. But there's a local bakery, and they sold princess cake, and that was the first place I had it. And I will tell you, it is kind of funny because I would have thought like this is not going to sound great, but it is fondant over the cake. And then there's a layer of marzipan inside with like frosting and nice moist cake and some jam and stuff like that. But it's kind of like the cake has marzipan and rolled fondant. I don't know if I would like that. It's so delicious.
Yeah,
So
I've never
yummy.
even heard of that.
It's super yummy.
It sounds so good.
It's a traditional Swedish cake, right, Ami?
Yes. I actually don't know the answer to that.
It is. No, it is.
Do you have a preferred birthday cake?
Oh, gosh, I mean, I think I usually tend to gravitate towards anything chocolate. But I've started to like get a little bored with that. Like, I think I would always go for a chocolate cake with like a ganache frosting, and something really rich. And the last time I had one of those, I was like, it's just so much, So like I've been actually on the hunt for my new favorite go-to birthday cake. But I feel like chocolate would still be involved, but maybe I would mix it up with a coffee buttercream or, something a little different. Caramel. Yeah.
Raspberries.
Yeah.
Something fancy.
Yeah. Some or just some contrast to the chocolate of the cake.
Well, that just talking about types of cake, you're in the market for a cake. I thought we could talk about a couple places here in Los Angeles. You've already mentioned Sweet Lady Jane, about like how much you could get a birthday cake for and pricing versus should you buy a cake from one of these places or maybe try to make one at home. So at Sweet Lady Jane, you can get a 6-inch cake for around $85.
Oh my gosh, that price has gone up. 6 inches.
Yeah, 6-inch cake.
No. I mean, I actually, I'm going to say that's a good price.
Really? Well, it's even cheaper at Milk Bar. You can get a 6-inch cake for around $56.
I have to say I've had Sweet Lady Jane's different cakes, and their most famous one that you'll see a lot online is the berries one.
Yeah.
It's like cream on it's like a whipped cream frosting, whatever, on the outside, and then berries and stuff. And that's nice. I've had a few different ones. I have had I went to one of George's school friend's birthday, and the mom ordered Milk Bar, and it was like their like classic kind of like naked cake, but it was like lemon curd and blueberries, and it was this whole big layered thing, and then the crunchy crumbles, and it was insane. It was insane.
You had me at blueberries. That sounds amazing. And then there's also Magnolia Bakery, which it didn't have a specific for their 6-inch cake, but it said their cakes range from about $45 to $120. So just lots of different pricing here. But Ami, you said that $85 is actually really good. For it.
For us, I've on and off sold cakes. I used to do it a little bit more than I do now. And there is a lot that goes into making a cake from scratch. The time it takes to make those layers, to make the fillings, to make the frosting, to assemble the cake. They're not really cheap, and they may, maybe the handful of ingredients you're using, if you're not using chocolate, which can be expensive, and if you're not using nuts, which can also be expensive, they don't necessarily cost a lot, but they can be complex. They can take hours to make, even the simplest of cakes, if you're really trying to do everything from scratch, make all your homemade frostings and stuff. So I do find when I see a cake, a 6-inch cake for $85, I mean, I would never buy a cake. I would only ever make them. Yeah. So, I've never, ever gone to any of these places and bought a cake. But I understand that pricing. I understand why something would cost money like that.
We've talked multiple times, I feel like, on this podcast about Ami's cake business, or that you used to make cakes a lot. And I just recently went on your Instagram and actually looked at some of these cakes. there and some of these designs you've done are insane. Like I was like, what? Like it made sense because I now know you so well, and we call her our fancy lady. And you make these fancy cakes. Yeah. How did you get into that?
Mostly it's just like it's a creative pursuit. It's somebody wants a cake. Sometimes someone will just ask for a cake and they want a certain flavor, and and I can kind of go to town with the idea. Sometimes for kids, it's been we're doing a Moana party, or we're doing a disco party, or we're doing a Transformers party or something, and then I get to like make a cake that like looks like that is on theme, which is really like I actually have found making these crazy birthday cakes for kids has been super fun, and it's as much a it's just a challenge for me. Like how do I make a cake that fits in with the theme of this party, and like how sometimes there's questions of gravity, or there's questions of or if it's really in the summertime and it's really hot and you don't want things to slide around, and sometimes people will just like I just want this flavor, and then you can make it look however you want, and then I can just make something that looks pretty. They're all so different. And when I was thinking about trying to grow this business, someone had suggested, why don't you just like come up with 10 cakes, and those are the cakes you make. And those are the cakes you always make. And I kind of felt like that sort of took the joy out of it for me.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, like I thought, well, that's not the kind of business I want. I love it when somebody asks me for something specific. They want a specific look or a theme or a color or a flavor. And then I get to, bring my own thoughts and creativity to it. So it definitely becomes more of I almost want to say it becomes an artistic pursuit and a creative pursuit.
Yeah, for sure it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so Gemma, I know you have an affinity for Costco.
No, by necessity, not by choice.
By necessity. So I wanted to know what you think about Costco's sheet cakes as an option for a birthday cake.
I'd love to know some more information about the Costco sheet cake.
Yeah.
Have you ever had it?
I have. I have had it.
I have too.
I had it. I think the first time I had it, and the second time also, when I first started dating Kevin, and we went to his nephew's and niece's birthday parties. As for those of you who are listening, Costco is a wholesaler here in the US, and they make a lot of big, take-home stuff that you can buy, like big pizzas and pies, like literally a $6 pumpkin pie that is huge, roast chickens. One of the things that they are famous for is sheet cakes. And it's just a big slab of, usually white cake, right? And then they will customize it. So anyway, your question was, what do I think about it?
Yeah. Or what do you want to know?
I want to know, like, I'd love to know how many they sell a year.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to know how much money they're making on those cakes. I want to know where it came from. Whose idea was it to start selling these like slabs of cake? Like, I think it's genius. But I will tell you that ever since I do love a cake that is like incredibly soft and frosting that's incredibly soft. And sometimes you only get that from like mixes and frostings that are not all natural.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely a texture person when it comes to my desserts. So I do love the texture and then also it's like it's very vanilla-y.
Yeah.
I'm fond. I can appreciate a Costco sheet cake.
Yeah. I did some research just because I was so curious about it too, because they are so widely known. So because we were talking about prices of some of these more private, like Los Angeles bakeries, here's the price. For a Costco sheet cake is $18.99 for half a sheet cake, and that serves up to 48 people.
There you go, right there.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's your answer.
That's your answer. And it weighs 9.5 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
And then something that I think is so funny about Costco cakes is that the process is very archaic. Like you have to go in person and you fill out the little form and you drop it off at the bakery, and say a Hail Mary that they got your order. Like there's no confirmation really.
Like in a little slip box.
Yeah, you put it in a little box and then that's it. And then
because they've no thing in a Costco to announce like, hey, Joanne, come up here and get your cake.
Yeah, you just have to like.
Is it you do it the day you're there?
I think you have to do it before.
Oh, like a few days before, and then
I mean, you know when to go back.
Right.
Or like if you're wanting something special, like specific, I guess. But I mean, no, you can also just buy them. Right there, untouched, not personalized. But if you want it personalized, or you go back. That's what I'm saying. It's archaic. It's an old way of doing cake, I guess.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
18 feeds almost 40 people, and I've seen it. And
almost
they
50
do.
People.
They do, like they feed because everybody gets a little slice.
Yeah.
For $18. Wow. I mean, it's kind of hard to argue with that, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think too, it comes down to what are the needs of the cake?
Yeah.
Right. How many people? And then
also, like everybody has had Costco sheet cake. Mm-hmm. Nobody is going to say like a hard no to a slice of Costco sheet. Just eat it. It's delicious.
Now, if we were wanting to make cakes at home, I know I mentioned this a few episodes ago that's my New Year's resolution is to make all my friends cakes. Mm-hmm. So what would be for both of you?
Did you make my cake today?
I didn't.
Oh, that's nice. Go on,
sorry.
Continue.
This was my last episode here. I need to know. No, but what would be some tips for home baking birthday cakes and decorating them?
Some tips this is probably the opposite of what Ami's going to say, but I would say for me, keep it simple. When it comes to decorating.
You know what? Logistically, if you're throwing a birthday party and you're making the cake, say you've got a kid or a friend or whatever, I would say make your cake layers a week, 2 weeks in advance. Cool, let them cool, wrap them up really well and freeze them first. Cakes stay really fresh that way. And that way and then you can make your frosting, everything, all of your elements. You can make your frosting, put it in the fridge or the freezer, depending on how far in advance you do it. Make all the elements of your cake without assembling them all in advance because you're going to be busy. You're throwing a party, you want to make a nice cake. Then the day before, you can bring everything up to temperature and assemble your cake. And then there you have it. I think like that would be my biggest bit of advice for making a birthday cake.
Yeah, assemble it the day before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And do not bake a cake the same day you're going to assemble it because that is not going to go well.
Yeah, I have done that before and it's all hot and melty.
Yeah. It doesn't quite
crummy.
work.
Well, it's because the crumbs are fresh, so you try and decorate it and all the crumbs go through your thing.
Yeah.
It's very tricky.
And if you're trying to do something, more involved or creative or a design, look, if you see a design on TikTok or Instagram that like looks really incredible and they make it look really easy and you think, oh, I'm going to do that. It's not easy. It's never as easy as they say. It's never, ever. I have made so many cakes and I can't tell you how many times I have been like, but I saw this on Instagram and it looks so easy. Just no, cut yourself some slack, have a plan B. Remember, in the end, it's just sweet and everyone's going to be glad to eat it. And give yourself way more time, just room for error if you're trying to do something experimental.
I will say my last thing is that I've done George's birthday cakes. Have I done all of them? And we all know my decorating skills. I can decorate the outside, that's grand, but I'm not going to be like piping fancy stuff on it. But what I do is I go online and I say like 1 year was Mickey Mouse, 1 year, I think last year was ninjas or something like that. I buy the characters, I buy cake toppers, I buy the characters, I buy whatever, and I dress the cake that way. Oh. And I make it look really good without having to do designs on the actual cake.
That's I feel like that's a good way to have that theme without like stressing out about it.
For sure.
Too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you both so much for all your advice and tips on cakes. We're going to hear now from one of our bold baking correspondents to get their thoughts on cake making.
Hi guys, my name's Paul Bradford and I'm the joint owner of Cake Flicks and the Kilted Baker. Now I've been making cakes for over 30 years, which is quite a long time. And one of the block of advice I'd like to give people when they're first starting out is if you're taking orders for friends, family, for customers, Just take the orders that you're going to be passionate about. The cakes that when you jump out of bed in the morning, you're excited to make. There is nothing worse than that dread when you wake up and think, I'm never going to build this cake. I'm really worried about it. I'm getting stressed. Make cakes that you're really passionate about. It makes a huge difference and it flows through the cake to the customer. Now, when it comes to pricing a cake, when we first started the business, we went for the rule of threes, which is if you're, say your cost of ingredients, so your flour, your eggs, your chocolate, the cake boards, the dusts, say it all comes to about $100, then you times that by 3. So then $100 for your overheads and $100 for your time to your labor costs. So that gives you $300. And then, but the cake might take a bit longer to make, and you've maybe put more different skills into it. Then you can add extra profit onto the end. So $300, and actually I'm going to charge another $50 for that little bit extra time that I did the cake. So it's a good way to set base and a very basic way of working out your pricing for cakes, because it's a minefield trying to work out the pricing. Now, cakes I like to make, it's one of the big questions I always get asked when I'm teaching classes and etc. And I love, really challenging cakes, ones maybe grab-defying, that supposedly it's going about to fall over, or even better, if you've got any beams and where you're going to be setting the cake up, or even outside in the garden, creating a chain so the cake's hanging there, just kind of floating in space. It's just really exciting doing things that just pushes your boundaries. So anyway, so the big thing I always say to people is make cakes and be happy. Thanks, guys.
And we're back with the Bold Baking Hotline, where we answer questions directly from you. And our first question is it necessary to use cake flour, or can we use all-purpose flour?
That's a good question. I always used all-purpose flour for since forever, because I didn't really know about cake. I never knew about cake flour before coming to the US. And then in the last recent years, especially working with Ami, now I know to always use cake flour, because it does yield you a softer cake and a softer crumb. If you cannot find cake flour, I've got a recipe on biggerbolderbaking.com, and it's simply all-purpose flour with a little bit of cornstarch in it to dry it out, which makes it kind of crumblier.
Ooh. Yeah. So what cake flour does is it gives it a finer crumb.
Yeah.
There's less gluten in the cake flour, so you get sort of a denser, more tender cake. It's much better. If you use if you can use all-purpose flour for a cake, it's just going to be coarser and more open, almost like a muffin. Oh, it's going to have a different texture.
Oh, look at that. The more you know. Our next question is, how much icing does each size cake use?
Well, I mean, I think the general answer I would say is more than you think. So I think I do see frosting recipes that will say this makes 3 cups of frosting, enough to fill and frost a 9-inch cake. I'll see that often on recipes. But I mean, that is really if all you're doing is filling and doing a very simple, smooth frosting on the outside of your cake. But if you want to do any sort of embellishment, if you want to add some decorations or anything, you're going to need, or if you have more than, if you're torting the cake, meaning you take each layer and you cut it in half, so you've got several layers, you're going to need more frosting. So my tendency is often to time and a half or double a frosting recipe. If I want to say cup measurements, I don't know that I could exactly say, but for a 9-inch cake, which usually I would tort so that I have 4 layers of cake with 3 layers of frosting in there, maybe I would do more like 5 cups. Also, because many times I have been in the middle of frosting a cake and then I've run out of frosting and then I've had to stop and I've had to make more frosting. And that is very, very annoying.
Especially if it was a particular color.
Yes, and then you have to color match and this and that. Make more than you think. You can also just leave it white, and you can freeze frosting forever, basically. I
actually didn't know that until Ami did it in my house, and then I remember George was having, don't even ask me, but he was having a birthday cake for a bunny, and whatever. I got suckered in again, and but there was frosting in the freezer. And the good thing about it is it doesn't freeze. We did cream cheese, and it didn't freeze rock hard, so I could actually use it whenever I wanted.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So I just say make more. And then if you've got a little bit of frosting you don't know what to do with, sometime you're going to have some cupcakes or a little cake or something. I mean, it gets used.
Yeah.
You'll need an embellishment on a different cake, and you've got that.
Well, I have one more question here also about frosting, and that is, how do you get the air bubbles out of frosting? Is there an easier way than using a spatula?
Not that I've found. And for anyone who doesn't know, by using a spatula, you put your frosting in a big bowl and you sort of repeatedly smash the frosting against the sides of the bowl to sort of push out the air bubbles. I don't often even bother because it's it depends on the look. I mean, if you're really, really trying to get a super refined, smooth look, you can, but it takes a lot of arm strength and patience. And
I never got this because people have been asking me this for years on the website and on social. And I always kind of thought, isn't that what you want? Like, you're trying to get air into your frosting. Like, what's the, I understand, like, if you're maybe doing a cupcake and you do end up with a little bubble, but I just never found, like, I never got why people, like, didn't want it in there. I was like, isn't that what you're trying to create? Trying to get as much air in there to make it light and fluffy.
Well, if you're trying to have a really smooth finish, like on the side of a cake, or if you're trying to pipe flowers or something and you don't want air pockets in there.
Maybe the, like, designy stuff.
Yeah. It can mar the look, if you're really trying to get something smooth. But I very rarely, even when I'm piping decorations, I also, it depends on the frosting you use. Maybe I'll use I usually do a Swiss meringue buttercream, and I just find that frosting in general tends to be a lot smoother than American buttercreams. So there's less of a need to be pushing the air bubbles out.
Well, thank you both so much. That was all the questions I had for the Bold Baking Hotline. And Gemma, I didn't make you a birthday cake.
I know you told me. You already told me. Why are you telling me again?
But that doesn't mean somebody at this table didn't make you a birthday cake.
Joey.
But Ami made you a cake.
Is it cake time?
It's cake time. Ami,
Okay.
would you like to do the honors?
Yes. All right, Gemma. Happy birthday!
It's beautiful.
Gorgeous. And it's both. Oh, am I shouting into the microphone? It's a heart. And it is princess cake, right?
It is princess cake adjacent.
Adjacent.
So
you got all the layers in there. I didn't cover it with marzipan
which is incredibly hard.
because yes, that was me last night trying to cover a cake with marzipan,
Yeah.
and the whole thing kept breaking apart. And then I said, you know what? I'm just going to do green frosting, and we're going to do a viral heart cake.
Yeah.
It's so funny because when we were talking about the viral heart cake and asked if you'd made it, you were like,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Ami.
it's so beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Is green your favorite color?
It is now.
I love that.
I was trying to make it look like a princess cake.
It does look like a princess
Themed.
cake.
All the layers are in there for the princess cake on the inside. It just doesn't have marzipan on the outside.
Gorgeous. Because, like I remember at one point I said I was going to make it on Bigger Bolder Baking, and somebody was like, don't do that. Like, it's impossible to get the shape. It's so, and I'm not a cake person. So it was just like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking?
Well, so I made this marzipan, and it was crumbly, and then I tried to rework it, and then it was getting oily. And then I went online and tried to troubleshoot. I thought, what am I doing? What's going on? And I have tried to cover cakes in marzipan before, and to no success. So I knew this. I wasn't super surprised, but I tried a different recipe. And apparently in the Cake Bible, Rose Levy Berenbaum writes about a marzipan where she basically makes a poured fondant and mixes it with almond paste. And that turns into a marzipan that you can actually drape on a cake. And I don't know why I didn't first go to that book, because she knows everything. Wow. But anyway, now next year, Gemma.
That sounds delicious. I want that cake. Yeah. This is lovely. This is gorgeous.
Something that I was going to ask when we were talking about the viral heart cake is I've seen some people use heart-shaped molds, and then I've seen people use just a regular 9-inch mold, and then they cut it and then move, like they cut off part of the circle and they move it.
Yeah.
And I know that you don't like single-use tools.
Oh, it just looks so good. So, is this creme patisserie?
Okay, so it's an olive oil chiffon cake with a milk soak, and then the layers it's a homemade raspberry jam and creme diplomat.
Yum.
Which is creme patisserie mixed with some sweetened whipped cream.
Gorgeous.
And that's why we call her Fancy Ami. Oh my gosh, are you seeing this?
This is absolutely gorgeous.
It is so beautiful.
You asked Ami a question, but I interrupted. What pan did you use for this?
So this was all made, the cake itself was made in a sheet pan, a 13 by 18 half sheet pan.
Oh, wow.
And then I cut 3 heart shapes out of, I just made a template out of a piece of paper. I made a heart and then cut that out.
I haven't seen that before on TikTok. I've been seeing people either buying a heart-shaped cake tin, which I know you would never do, or using a circle 9-inch, and then they cut the point of the heart and then take those pieces to the top to make the round.
I saw that.
It's hard.
I saw that, and in fact, I was almost going to do that. I was going to cut 3 circles, and then all of a sudden I realized, why am I doing that? I can just cut the hearts.
Yeah, no, that makes more sense to me.
Yeah, and it was super easy because you're baking a single cake, and I have small cake pans. I could have done 3 6-inch cakes, but
Where is the almond, Ami?
so
No, where is it? No, I taste it. No, I want to know.
Where is it, Ami?
No, I want to know where is it in the cake because I taste it.
well, okay, so because I could not.
Don't make me look like the bad guy.
Where's the almond?
Who's editing this?
Because I couldn't cover the cake with marzipan, as it didn't work, I flavored the green buttercream on the outside with
I had
almond.
a feeling that's what it was.
So it was all princess cake, like this fluffy?
The one at Sweet
airy?
Lady Jane's is because you have these moist layers.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Sweet Lady Jane does a diplomat too. I'm not 100% sure. Very similar to this, and then the jam and everything. It is very light like this. Nearly everyone I've had has been light like this. And Ami, what kind of jam is this?
It's just a simple. I cooked down raspberries with a little sugar and lemon.
It's yummy.
That's it.
Well,
So it's super fresh. It doesn't have that really cooked taste.
Yeah, it also looks like it doesn't.
it's delicious. Well, thank you, Ami, for this cake. Thank you, Gemma, for having a birthday so that we can eat this cake.
Thank you for being 42. This is my 42nd year.
Yay.
Yeah, getting up there.
Thank all of you for tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe, rate, and review us anywhere you listen to podcasts. And you can catch every episode of Need to Know on YouTube.
From HRN and the Bold Baking Network, you are watching the Need to Know Baking Entertainment podcast.